Imagine walking through the golden city of Athens over 2,000 years ago. You pass by magnificent marble temples, bustling marketplaces, and wealthy philosophers in fine silk robes. Then, in the middle of a crowded square, you see a large overturned ceramic wine tub. Living inside it is an old man, dressed in a single, tattered cloak. He is barefoot, unwashed, and surrounded by stray dogs, to the elite of Athens. He is a madman, a dog of a human. But this man, known as Diogenes, the cynic, was perhaps the only truly free person in the entire city. His life is a startling challenge to our modern obsession with more, teaching us that the only way to gain absolute control over your life is to embrace the power of enough. Diogenes was not born a beggar. He was the son of a wealthy banker, but after being exiled from his home for a scandal involving currency, he found himself in Athens with nothing. Most people would have spent their lives trying to reclaim their lost status. They would have lived in the shadow of resentment. But Diogenes had a profound epiphany. He realized that the things we think we own actually end up owning us. We spend our lives protecting our property, worrying about our reputation, and fearing the loss of our comforts. He decided to stage a lifelong protest against the noise of civilization. He chose solitude and simplicity as his weapons of choice. One of the most famous stories of his life involves a simple wooden cup. For a long time, the cup was his only possession. But one day, Diogenes saw a young boy drinking water from a fountain with his cupped hands. Diogenes immediately reached into his bag and threw his cup away, saying, "A child has beaten me in plainness of living." This was the ultimate act of letting go. He realized that even a cup was a luxury that created a dependency. By stripping away every external attachment, he was building an inner citadel that no thief could rob and no tyrant could touch. He was practicing mastery in its purest, most radical form. The pinnacle of his story occurred when Alexander the Great, the man who was conquering the known world, decided to visit the philosopher who lived in a barrel. Alexander stood before Diogenes, surrounded by his generals and soldiers, the sun glinting off his golden armor. The king said, "Ask of me any favor you choose, and I will grant it." Most people would have asked for a palace, a mountain of gold, or a position of power. But Diogenes didn't even look up. He simply said, "Stand out of my sunlight." In that moment, the power dynamic of history was reversed. Alexander owned the world, but he was a slave to his ambition, his fear of failure, and his need for conquest. Diogenes owned nothing. Yet he possessed total sovereignty over his own mind. He didn't need the king's gold, because he already possessed the tranquility of the soul. Alexander was so moved by this that he famously remarked, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." It was a recognition that mastery over one's desires is a higher form of power than mastery over empires. Diogenes also practiced a form of honesty that was both brutal and healing. He was often seen walking through the streets of Athens during the day with a lit lamp. When people asked what he was doing, he would reply, "I am looking for an honest man." He was mocking the hypocrisy of a society that valued appearance over integrity. He believed that our anxiety stems from the masks we wear to please others. By living as a dog, he was showing that a human being who is true to their nature is more dignified than a king who lives a lie. In our modern world, we are told that having nothing is the ultimate failure. We are bombarded with messages that we need the latest phone, the bigger house, and the perfect social media profile to be significant. We feel anxious when we compare our lives to others. We are imprisoned by our attachments. But Diogenes invites us to perform a mental audit. He asks us to identify the things in our lives that we don't actually need, the noise that is blocking our sunlight. He shows us that control is not found in accumulation, but in detachment. To find your own wealth today, you must practice the art of minimalism of the soul. You don't need to live in a barrel, but you do need to stop letting your possessions define your worth. Understand that your integrity is the only thing that is truly yours. Everything else is just borrowed from fortune. When you realize that you are enough, just as you are, the world loses its power to manipulate you. You become invincible because you have nothing to lose and everything to gain from the present moment. Take a deep breath. Look at the sunlight in your own life. What are the Alexanders standing in your way? Is it the need for approval, the fear of poverty, the pressure to conform? Give yourself permission to tell them to move. Reclaim your sovereignty. Practice the silence of the barrel. Realize that true mastery is the ability to be happy with a wooden cup, or no cup at all. As you move forward, remember the man in the tub. He showed us that the more we let go, the more we possess. He proved that a life of simplicity is a life of total control. You are not defined by what you have. You are defined by what you can live without. Stand tall in your own truth, find your own sunlight, and live as the master of your own soul.